Thank you so much, Katie. Yes, and welcome back, or great you're still with us, how we see it. Thank you for joining us here in the eTravel track, and stay with us for the next 30 minutes. We will be discussing the modern hotel technology stack, something been discussed so many times, but it seems there's still so much to discover and to demystify. So I have the perfect guests with me today to tackle that topic. And with me in the studio, I'm not alone on stage, which is fantastic. And welcome, a warm welcome, Henrik, Steen. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in all the way from Denmark, Copenhagen. It's a pleasure. And yeah, great to be together on stage. And you are at Cloudbeds. Cloudbeds is a technology provider in the hospitality space, and you're director of software engineering. So there's a lot of technical knowledge within you. So you're the technical guy.
That's where I come from, yeah.
Yes, perfect. Good, you fit in. So, and then also in the audience, please join me in welcoming, joining us remotely all the way from Austria. We have Michael Heinze, the chief architect at Shiji Group. Thank you, Michael, for joining. Great to have you.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Leah.
Perfect. And then we have joining us remotely as well, Iris Steinmetz. Iris, thank you so much for joining us. You are the Senior Director of Operations EMEA at HRS Hospitality and Retail Systems. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hello, Leah, and lovely to be here.
Perfect. And then a very special view offering for us today here, and maybe the most important one in this discussion, I might say, not sure, is Timo Kettern. Timo, you are Corporate Director of IT at Bierwirth and Kluth. It's a hotel operations company, so you are the hotelier in this round, and you will vouch for their interests on the hotelier side. Great to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the welcome, Leah. I'm happy to share my views also.
Right, and as you are the hotelier, and we should always focus on the customer, right, the one that's actually in the end working with the technology, I'd like to start off with you, Timo. Fill us in, or point the picture. What are the challenges with designing a modern hotel tech stack for a hotelier? Why is this that difficult in 2022?
That's a great question, and it's a big question also. So I'm going to leave budgets and other resources aside, and I'm just going to focus on where the challenges are for me and looking at my special situation. So Bierwirth and Kluth is a multi-branded hotel operation. We have hotels in Germany and in Austria. We're coming from a turnaround management, and we operate branded hotels, and we also operate long stay products. The branded hotels are with North American brands. So the challenge I'm having when designing the technology stack is that parts of my technology stack are actually defined by the brand and the franchise I'm operating the hotel from, and so I'm not in full control of the technology stack myself. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why I pay the franchise fee to the brand, so that they provide that. But it means to me that the technology stack for me has to be looked at for each hotel individual, because, like I said, parts of the technology stack are defined by the brand, mostly the distribution and the revenue management part and the PMS part. But with my long stay products, where I'm in control, where it's our brands and we're in full control of the technology, it's a completely different picture. So I need to make sure that I define the technology layer, the tech stack, in various layers, and that the various layers are then as much brand agnostic as they can be. So if for me, in my special situation, it is about that I'm not in full control of the entire technology stack due to the brands of the hotels we operate.
Right, thank you, Timo. That's good to know, and also important to differentiate. And Iris, what would you say? What are you seeing when you talk with your customers, the average persona of hotelier? What's their main challenge in designing a modern hotel tech stack?
I think the biggest difference we see in whether they are brand affiliated in some sort, group affiliated, or whether they're individual and get the full choice. So it links a bit to what Timo was saying. However, either way, the interoperability of the different products like a hotelier might choose is still one of the bigger problems, that integrations don't always exist as you would wish for them to be there. Functionality don't always match, like from one system to the other, which then again makes control, transparency across the whole stack very difficult. Learning a new product is not always intuitive. And with the fast turnover in the hospitality industry, particularly now in COVID time, we lost a lot of staff. They, like in finding new, you want quick training, that is not always evident. So those are the biggest challenges around designing the right stack for your needs.
Right. Yes. Before I go to you, Michael, because you can answer probably also for the hoteliers on the enterprise side of our industry. Henrik, you're with Cloudbeds. You're working mainly with hospitality operators with less than 100 rooms,
yes.
Mainly leisure focused. What would you say is their one top challenge in designing the perfect hotel tech stack?
Lack of staff, lack of trained staff. I think that's something everybody struggles with right now. A lot of our effort is about taking all these underlying integrations, even when they're with our own different components, and hiding that complexity from that staff. Trying to make it as easy as possible to train and to get that staff up to speed, even when they're inexperienced hotel staff or whatever.
So usability is a game changer.
Usability is huge for that, I think. I think that's where the really immediate savings for the hotels are.
Right. So interesting. And then Michael Heinze, I know you're passionate about emphasizing that hotels should not think on an individual hotel basis scenario. They should look, and you call it above property level. Can you explain a bit more what you mean by that? So what approach should a hotelier take here when they have multi-property companies looking at us?
Sure. From my perspective, and this was mentioned by the other, talking points here, is that the COVID crisis pushed us into new requirements. Hotels wanted or needed to have contactless operations. Guests want to have more self-service, to be more in control. And all those changed user expectations, changed the requirements to their central IT systems. Now, I'm saying central IT systems because all that activity, whether it's contactless, guest self-service, better service, more in knowledge or intelligence about the guest, is actually dependent on having a central guest profile. And guess what? If you're a hotel group or hotel chain with multiple hotels, oftentimes still you will have multiple guest profile stores sitting in different hotels, in different locations, in different systems, and making them speak to each other or work each other so that you have a central view to the guest information, guest preferences, guest privileges is really challenging and difficult. And so for us, we tend to primarily for all hotel groups, brands, chains, look at above property level because yes, we have operations in every hotel, but the key asset, the information about guests, the information about markets is actually by nature above property, and you don't need to have that information to that level on the property anymore. That's why we think primarily above property on a multi-property layer, and we combine many, say, services, systems, data points into less systems, into less silos to provide a better service. That's what we mean by being above property.
Right. And Iris, what are you seeing when because you have a very diverse customer group, right? Which you're a traditional provider, you're operating globally with your solutions. What are you seeing there? Would your hoteliers agree with that approach?
I think it depends a bit the region. You have requirements in certain region which makes it harder than in others to go to that point. And I think in some cases we still see a more conservative approach where people don't want to let the data out of their hands. I think what is, however, very much changing is how above property is defined, where in the past we were talking more on the reservation side of things, on the distribution side of things. Now it goes in the direction, as Michael was saying, where more the guest-centered focus is there and not the stay-centered focus. And we see more and more systems going as well in that direction, making the on-premise operations a lot sleeker from that perspective. And I think that is a global trend and not just specific to a region.
Right. And Timo, if you look, if you would be in an ideal setting and you would not having the constraints you're seeing due to your setup with your franchise and brands, would you go that way? Would you create a scenario above property level and then translate it down to your properties? Would that be an approach?
Absolutely, yes. If I think of easeability, ease of use, and ease of deployment and scalability, going above property is the right decision, is the right strategy to do. If I think about training, if I think about adjustments to the system, to the settings, micro updates, major update releases. If I am on a centralized model, it's a lot easier than if I'm on property. However, it also becomes more challenging because in the more jurisdictions a hotel operation is happening, you need to ensure that your above property system can handle all of those jurisdictions and language. And the point we made earlier about new team members, staff members coming into the hotels, the ease of use, that is also a critical one. But definitely going above property in the greenfield scenario is the way to go.
Right, interesting. And then I know in our pre-conversation that we had prior to setting up this panel here today, Henrik, you were very passionate about the topic of cloud, right? I'm a technologist, of course. What's your take here? What's the role of cloud technology within setting up a hotel technology stack?
I think the whole world has gone cloud in the past 20 years, especially in the last 10. And I think hotel systems are going to end up going that way too for a long list of reasons. The main thing that most cloud systems do is they're interoperable. Much as you're talking about on the integration with the proprietary hotel systems you have to deal with, integration is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the game. What we're looking at as a company is trying to say, okay, we have all these integrations we have to deal with, including from all of our own distinct systems, all the different payment methods, all the other things we need to deal with, and the external systems. What we need to do is hide that from the user. Our job really is to try and simplify that because it's an increasingly complex space under the hood. We're looking at the insides of building your own car, and we're trying to give you a steering wheel and a gas pedal and not worry about who made the carburetor. Right? That's what we're doing.
Right, Iris, what's your take on that? It's easy said, right? Let's go to the cloud, but is it as easy?
I think over the last years, we constantly repeat that integrations is our problem, but still the progress is so slow in that area. Right. Some get it really right and others still have difficulties. But I think furthermore, from going to the cloud, I think we all agree that this is the way where it will go. But the steps to get there are really depending on various possibilities. We have certain areas where still infrastructure is not good enough. Internet is not good enough to actually allow for this. I am just working with a customer in Pakistan who'd be super interested to go to the cloud, but it's just impossible. They sometimes don't have any form of communication for 5 days. So. But the other aspect is certainly the legal requirements, the fiscal requirements, where as well to adopt to that one single vendor often needs a time to actually get this all done. And a lot of local knowledge is required for that to stay as well up to date on this. And this is something which in my day-to-day plays a large role because with like the global footprint we have, we get a lot of these challenges actually.
Right. So it kind of reflects basically the fragmentation and diversification of our industry, right? So it's not as easy as it looks, because if you look at the certain setups. So also, Timo, from your perspective, right, you're operating you're responsible for several brands, and you are in close contact with you are in the Marriott Tech Board as well. So you have various insights, right? So what would you say, is cloud for you a reality today, or for tomorrow, or maybe just in a few years? What's the status there?
What I see with the brands, with the North American brands we operate with, they all want to shift their business into the cloud. But actually, the constraints come with the legacy systems which are there, which need to also either be migrated onto a cloud platform, or you need to find intermediate ways to make it cloud compatible. So there is a clear push also from the big brands to go towards the cloud. The challenge they're having is getting their entire technology stack to move with that, and to get all of their technology partners to move in the same direction. And what Iris just said, some of them have hotels in 150 countries. So you need to make sure that your tech stack works in 150 countries under the jurisdiction they do business there with. And that's a challenge for them to move it to the cloud. So the brands, I think, for a while will still have a hybrid model where some of the core systems they will be in a cloud format, but some of the systems will be sitting in the territories, and some of the systems will remain on property for a foreseeable future.
Right, thank you. And Michael, you mentioned it before. You said we go above. You talked about the central the customer profile, the central one, right? You call it a single guest profile, if I recall correctly.
Right.
Right. So that's understood, right? So that's a challenge of the industry, that we have to get the data right, so have actionable data instead of just having a lot of data. But if you also go to the single source system for the tech stack, that's discussed many times as well, right? So there's some discussions out there. Is the property management system really at the heart of a tech stack, or should it maybe be like a database, like a CDP, like a customer data platform is discussed a lot? Michael, what's your take there? What would you say? What would you recommend a hotelier where to start? What's the core system you start with, if at all?
Well, that's a very good philosophical question. Many hotels historically centered around the PMS, because that's all they knew. Everything else was coming later and was just an addendum to a degree. From today's perspective, a system should be sitting in the cloud for cost reasons, for security reasons, development reasons, integrations capability. I believe the differentiation between PMS and CS, for example, will move away, because why have two inventories, two systems, if it's actually just one cloud system? Not necessarily more. Likewise for the guest profile. Still, today, there's so many systems. Not only in hotel, you have spa applications, you have loyalty applications, you have marketing applications, and every system requires its little bit of the guest information and works with a specific subset of all the profile data. Then you have locations, countries, data protection regulations, and all that mixing in. So it's really challenging. I believe, to answer your question, as reasonably and as practically possible, Leah, if you're an individual hotel, I believe you should center on one cloud-based system that can provide property services and distribution services, and provides those marketing, tasks and exercises that you want to do for your hotel. That will help a lot. The whole picture changes a lot if you're a brand, a group operating in multiple countries, perhaps even in multiple continents, because you have so much more legislative requirements on top, so many more languages you need to deal. And as Timo and you yourself mentioned, Iris, the danger is, if you're spread over so many countries, for example, that the slowest actually defines the speed for the chain. And that's something that you ultimately must avoid. You need to work a strategy where your leaders, whether that's IT guys, hotels, marketing, whatever department is, you always have some leaders and you have some laggards. And the IT strategy needs to be driving the energy or utilizing the energy of the leaders to move forward into the future, but somehow staying comfortable for the laggards to be somewhat on board, even when they're being incentivized to move on at a faster pace. And I believe this is looking different from organization to organization, because that's actually not a technology problem. That's a human problem most of the time. And you need to work with those humans to actually get them on board, and make those steps forward, whether that's in Pakistan, whether in Mauritius, or in St. Lucia in the Caribbean. We all have those edge and corner cases. But if you want to move a brand, a chain, a group forward, you need to work a strategy that can be inclusive of all those special cases. And that's the challenge. And that's where, vendors like us that have this international experience can come in and provide an approach to actually move the organization forward in that regard.
Right. And Henrik, I know that your leadership team at Cloudbeds is very vocal about that they think the term property management system is outdated and we should not talk about a property management system at all anymore. So fill us in a bit here. What's the vision here or the approach?
It's sort of the same vision in that property management system is just one facet of the things we need to do for a hotel.
Right.
So it's just one of them. We have the property management systems, the integration with all the internet booking agencies, all the other parts of the system. And it's the way we're going, at least, is very much expanding those integrations so that it feels like one system. You have one system you interact with, whether it's front office or back office, and that system shares, much to your point, the identity of the customer across all of them. It shares the reservations. It shares as much as possible across all those systems without making you have to interact with different systems with different UIs all the time.
Right.
That's very much the philosophy.
Yeah. So also securing interoperability, what you mentioned initially, Iris, right, as a very important factor. I'd like to steer away a bit to the topic of, okay, so as tech stack needs to be scalable, it needs to like be usable for the teams, right? We have to decrease the amount of training hours there. But Timo, from your perspective, also the collaboration with the partners, actually, right? So there could be good technology solutions out there, but then it also comes down to, okay, how do we move forward, right? So you pointed out that you would see there a lot of potential in commercial agreements, like how we actually partner up. Fill us in. What's your perspective there? So
the crisis over the last 2 years obviously had a huge financial impact on us hotel operators like B&K and all of the other hotel management companies out there. So the tech stack comes with a cost, and that tech stack currently is more or less fixed. It's based on amount of bedrooms, for example. You have amount of outlets you have, for example. So and I would like us as an industry, together with our vendor partnerships and our supplier partnerships, to move into a scenario where the hotelier would then be charged by occupied room rather than by available room. So that would make then the tech stack become more a variable cost dependent on the occupancy. And the benefit for the vendor is if the hotel is really doing well and is very successful using the technology stack from one of the vendors, they also get more revenue. So I'm looking forward to a business model where the hotelier is being charged on per occupied room or per used function of a specific technology item.
Right, Iris, what's your thoughts on that wish or request?
Well, I understand it entirely from a hotelier's point of view, but I see it as well from a technology point of view. And you always have to do a certain investment to harvest the fruits at a certain point in time. And I think to combine both of these goals will be challenging, not impossible, but challenging to satisfy the need of both. But yes, I agree that what we definitely, while maybe Timo's point of view is still a bit out, what is definitely the case is that as a technology in hospitality environment, we have to become more flexible when it comes to contracting. I believe as well that rigid contracts, which cannot be changed in 5 years without big penalties or whatnot, are a thing of the past for sure.
Right. So we have about 5 minutes left, and there's so many more points I'd like to cover, but we're just not going to make it due to time. So obviously there's a lot to discuss around hotel tech stack. So what I'm just going to do is very traditional. I'm just going to hand like a last statement to you, Michael, and then to you, Henrik, and Timo to you and Iris, and with the objective, like a call to action for the audience, imagining a hotelier wanting to improve the current hotel tech stack. So we start with you, Iris, and then we just go around and make it in time.
Okay.
Sure. I think we should not forget the objective on why you would want to change your tech stack. And I think in the end, we're in hospitality. It is always about the guest experience. And if you think on how to achieve that, then there is various items which we discussed today playing into, like how easy the staff can deal with the software, so more time they can spend with the guest, for example. On the other hand, if you don't have the interoperability of the different tools you're using, you will not have proper data. And if you don't have proper data, again, you're lacking out on some part of the picture, which will hamper you in providing the right guest experience. So in the end, my main point is like when you build up your tech stack, when you try to improve on your tech stack, think of the data and how the data flows, because that will give you the transparency you need to service your guests better.
Perfect. Usability, data flows. And Henrik, over to you. Less than a minute, please. Very concise. What's your top tip?
I very much agree with those 2 points, by the way.
Okay, cool. So.
but I would say extending the guest experience is probably one of the new frontiers as well.
Right.
90% of the world's population has a cell phone right now. 90%, right? Extending that in, extending everything from keys and messaging and
yes.
Your both pre and post stay interaction with the guest to that, I think is going to be one of the new frontiers in what we're all doing. And I think that just becomes part of the sprawling functions of how we take care of the guest better.
Perfect. Thank you. Michael, your turn. What would you add?
I can just second Iris here together with Henrik, because guest experience is driving our needs. And the data flows, the integrations are key to make that happen. There's so many different requirements on the UI, on the booking engine, on the smartphone app, whatever it might be, on the in-room experience. So the integrations, capabilities, and the ability of the different vendors that a hotel is looking for to actually make that happen, that's the key. Be aware of what you want to provide as a guest experience as a first step, and out of that you can derive what data needs to be available in what form to drive that. And that should drive your basically decision-making for any kind of cloud system or other backend systems.
Right.
Perfect, thank you. And Timo, over to you as a hotelier. What's your final tip?
Leah, so my advice to my fellow hoteliers is it goes a little bit to what Michael already said. So go and find out what is possible. So if you don't know what is possible, then it will be difficult to define your own technology stack. So go out to ITB. Next year we can be on site again, I hope. There are other ways to educate yourself. Speak to vendors, technology partners, and educate yourself. Find out what is possible, and then define for your own business, for your own goals, and what you want to achieve. Define what is best for you, for the business, the type of business you're operating. That's my advice to the fellow colleagues here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And yes, everyone in the audience, make sure to connect also with Timo Kettern, Iris Steinmetz, Michael Heinze, and Henrik Steen. So to follow up, and I'm sure they're happy to continue the discussion one-to-one as well and offer more insights on how they can support and help there. And yes, I agree with you, Timo. There's so many networks there you can join and you can engage with, and yeah, just get into a dialogue with the community and listen well. And then, yeah, it's an exciting topic. Thank you all so much for joining us here today for ITBBerlin Convention 2022. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope to see you all soon in person again. Michael, Iris, and Timo, and Henrik, thank you so much for coming in. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'm handing back to Katie. Thank you so much, everyone.